So do you want to hear my UK accent?
Yes.
This is like the best accent in the world, and this is all I know how to say, and it's awful, and it doesn't even sound British. But God save the Queen. That's my British accent. Yeah, and I don't know if you guys even say.
I sounded Indian.
See, I told you it doesn't sound British. I sound Indian. Do you guys even say God save the Queen anymore? Or is that more like a turn of the century kind of?
We say it all the time.
No. Do you really?
Culturally, you're not supposed to eat your meal until you said it. I'm joking. I'm talking out.
I was about to say, what? Oh my God. God save the Queen. Okay, we need our apple pie now. Or, what is it? Oh, that's more American, I guess. Do you?
Fucking froze again, haven't I?
Greg went out looking for a hack. So what is it that you love about forensics the most? Because what is really cool about having you on as a guest is I've never had a forensic analyst on the show. So like, what is it, like I usually always have hackers, like what is it about forensics that drives you, that kind of just, tickles your pickle?
Tickles your pickle.
What about forensics tickles your pickle?
So my pickle gets tickled by, no, I'm joking. I don't have a pickle. So these days. So no, I don't want to burst your bubble, but I don't actually really enjoy it.
Oh, like, you don't? Oh, no. I thought you were being sarcastic. You actually?
No, I don't. I massively don't enjoy it. Like I kind of, I love network forensics. I love
Oh, you're a packet monkey. You like to look at packets.
I do actually, and I've always really enjoyed that.
A girl after my own heart.
I like piecing together things that have happened on a network. I think you can get a lot of information from that. Whereas on an endpoint forensics, I think that you have to live that. You have to really love it and live it, because it's so siloed in a sense. And I can fumble my way through it, but I don't feel like I'd do a great job these days, So I did that at university, and then the jobs that I went into, I was working in like a forensic, my title might have been forensics, but I was very much like a SOC based person, doing defense, doing predominantly network based stuff, and that's
amazing. I've never met anyone who was a packet monkey like myself, but that's so cool, because we're rare. We're a very rare breed.
Do you think?
So okay, so in uni, did you guys have a network forensics course? Did you?
We did.
Really?
We had a class on network forensics,
where you guys dug into like the packet headers and 9-byte offsets, and that's.
Let me find it. Network forensic.
Oh, you guys are so much more advanced than us.
Oh, I don't know about that. .net. I don't know if anyone's like watching this and they want to learn more about network forensics. Networktrafficanalysis.net. Go to that. Fantastic.
Networktrafficanalysis.net. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm down with that. I'll put that out there.
A guy called Brad, who basically anytime a piece of malware comes out, it's in the news, whatever, he'll go and somehow magically get a PCAP of real network traffic
and analyze it
and create a challenge out of it and put it online, and it's
that's amazing. Like kind of like the old HoneyNet challenges, like
very similar network traffic. Sorry, go on.
So how long have you been in the industry? Like how long have you?
Not a great deal, not as long as most people. Probably about 6.5 years, something like that.
Oh wow, that's amazing.
Not a great deal.
Okay, so you like digging into packets. You're more on the network forensics side. What about log forensics? Do you like to okay, so your ideal job, of course, your ideal role is, of course, I guess, sitting in a SOC and looking at packets, looking at CM events, I'm assuming.
Yeah. Well, I think
Okay.
with that, like, logs is part and parcel of it. Like, I don't think, you can't, logs is part of your evidence, isn't it? You
Yeah.
can't
Well,
you
for
can't
sure.
really do a great job without both. And I think the perfect scenario is having endless logs and PCAPs to play with.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you need that the network and the endpoint. Like, okay, this is what we saw on the network. This is what the response, the stimulus and response was on the endpoint. So, interesting. So how do you believe that machine learning is changing the network forensics landscape? So back in the day, right, you would get your hands on a worm or malware and or an exploit and run it and record the packets with TCP dump
You don't have to do that
and
anymore.
create snort signatures, right? Like, or whatever, Sierra signatures. How do you think machine learning is changing that? Like, I mean, do you think the days of creating IDS signatures are going to eventually be gone and be over and replaced with ML models? Or how do you think that ML is shifting or changing the network forensic analyst?
That is a really good question. I think it's actually making our jobs a lot easier. I mean, I say our
Okay.
jobs. I don't do this anymore. But it's definitely making things easier. I know just in my short time in cyber defense, in these technical roles, I be in some environments that might have a great deal of budget and they've got a lot of tools to play with, and those tools auto generate certain defense mechanisms, whether that's a rule set or a use case or whatever, or you can type it in here and it appears here and blah blah blah. And then there's other companies that don't have that same level of budget, and they're very dependent on having that, maybe
Okay.
that one person.
That's
So
fair. Yeah.
I think machine learning's definitely got its part to play. And I mean, I'm not a massive fan of it yet. I don't think it's advanced enough to start replacing jobs, but I think it'll get there.
Sure. Yeah, and just because you have an ML-based NDR, like a network, detection response system, that's powered by ML, whether it's supervised or unsupervised learning models, you still have to have a human or an analyst to analyze the events and look at them. Okay, so you have an outlier, so you have shell code or you have an op sled. What is this in the greater scheme of things? This is, we're just looking at just a fraction of what's going on. You still need that analytic rigor from a human, right, to make sense of it.
Yeah, and I think not as much in environments that have got a great deal of input when it comes to machine learning, and they can really prioritize that and work with it, and hire a team that make sure that that's running effectively and doing what it needs to be doing. But for those companies that don't have that expense, and a lot of them don't, especially in the UK for some reason, despite the fact that the cost of cyber attacks affects us like massively, they're never going to be in a position to afford that. So we're always, for the foreseeable future, always going to need people that can do those manual tasks. But yeah, I mean, I've never worked in an environment that is machine learning dependent, like in that sense, to that extreme. It's always been integrated with how we work, and like learned behavior from that sort of perspective.
Yeah, and you've been in, I guess, very diverse roles. Like you were even cert at Visa. You've done, I'm assuming, the whole gamut of incident response forensics work, right? So what's your workflow? Like what's your tool set? If you were to kind of lay it out on a table, these are Eliza's
CEO.
crime scene investigation tools.
Now I'm a CEO, it's PowerPoint.
That's amazing. That's amazing. These are my slides. That's awesome. These are my slides.
So I honestly really liked there's an absolute wealth of tools that you just get in Kali Linux. There's a wealth of tools that you have in the command line that you can learn and get really great information out of, especially when it comes to file analysis and string analysis and stuff like that. Besides that, I really, really loved X-Ways. I really didn't love any case.
Oh God, yeah. I'm still going through really expensive therapy from my days of using case.
God, it's actually really expensive to learn and really hard to learn actually, but fantastic when you get it right.
Were you more partial to like FTK or?
Yeah, I love FTK.
Me too.
I love the fact that what's the name of the company again that owns
Access Data.
Access Data. I love the fact that they, released the free version for people to play with. Absolutely fantastic. LHS actually for training. I love things like, I love Splunk. I know they're a competitor now, but I love the fact that you can upload massive log data, an Excel file, and we can upload pretty much any file to Splunk, and it can just parse it, and you've got something that's really human readable. I love that Wireshark is freely available, and you can upload any PCAP to that. But also, actually, more so than Wireshark, I love Nets. What is that called? I've not used it in ages. Network Miner. Okay. Network Miner, fantastic.
Okay, so you've done your share of
like. If it's easy, I like it.
Yeah, open source tool. Like, why over engineer something and make it more difficult than it has to be?
I don't like things that are like
autopsy.
If I have to I know this sounds really ridiculous. So if I'm watching a YouTube video, I'll watch it on like 1.5 so that it ends quicker. And I think that's sort of my same attitude to learning. If I have to like really spend time on the GUI, I don't like it. I like something that you can apply the conceptual understanding of to. Does that make sense?
If you're constantly RTFMing, it's just too much of a time waste. And I get it.
I don't like that. I don't like. I mean, I apply that to every part of my life to the point where if I can read a book and watch a film, I'll watch a film. Okay.
All right. Yeah. You're more of a visual learner.
Yeah, definitely. If I have to spend, I think this is why I don't really like SEAM tools. If I have to spend, weeks learning how to use one specific thing when they're all based off of the same concept.
Idea or concept, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a fan. Not a fan of doing that.
Interesting. So what was the most interesting investigation? Like every policeman, every cop, every law enforcement officer has that one case that's just you'll never forget. What is that for you? What is that one case that you'll never forget? That one investigation that was just mind-blowing.
Okay, so I was by no means leading this investigation. I was very much assisting on it in a more junior capacity, but it was fantastic. So there was, I can't say too much, but there was a nation state group from abroad, from a country beginning with C, and they attacked a third-party supplier to UK critical national infrastructure through TeamViewer. Through TeamViewer.
Oh my God.
And they completely owned their entire estate, and their initial getting was through TeamViewer. And they were able to copy files, screenshot, loads of different things.
Massive data exfiltration, huh?
Yeah, and it was actually super interesting. And I've not, if I'm ever in an environment now and they have TeamViewer, I'm just like, ooh, I don't really want to use that.
Uninstall it.
Take it away. But it was, it was really fantastic. So I think that side of it from a forensics point of view is super interesting. The fact that you get to like the crux of, in a sense, potentially acts of war, but at the same time, yeah, it's not something I love, to be honest. I did really like, I know like socks get kind of a bad rap, but I really did like that. I really liked getting to know like an internal sock environment. I think it's great, especially for learning and picking up new skills. I was really lucky actually. I worked at Marks and Spencer for just under 2 years as an internal there, and it was such a vague role that I had exposure to defense,
Everything.
offense, forensics, like infrastructure, like worked with the sysadmins, I worked with the programmers, like vulnerability management, everything. And it was genuinely a massively beneficial role. At the time I used to think, Christ, is there anything else you could put on this donkey's back? But now like I understand how blessed I am to have worked there.
Oh, well, that's amazing. Well, it's for me, I'm sure there's a lot of people that say, okay, Alyssa, it's bad that you've worked at so many places and done so many things and been in so many roles. It's like your resume is too long. You've worked too many places and you weren't there long enough to absorb enough. But I think like to me, that's the story of my life. Like I've wanted to get what I can from that role or from that position and then move on to something new and try something new and learn something. And that's sort of been the story of my life, and if you can take at least one great thing from each role, it sounds like you have. It sounds like you learned a lot there, and definitely more than one thing, it sounds like.
Well, yeah, and if I'm totally honest, I know a lot of people are like, oh, I popped out of the womb with a Raspberry Pi, and I'm like, ugh, and they just love it. Like, I love the fact that this industry can get people out of poverty. I love the fact that you can train for free online. If you just know the right avenues to go down, you can really make something of your career with very little. And I like to think that I'm sort of an example of that. So before I got interested in cybersecurity, like I said, I did a year in forensics. Before that, I was a waitress.
Wow.
Yeah, in a really shitty part of the world. And if there's an opportunity, I will take it. If there's a company that's going to headhunt me out of where I am now, even if I like where I am now, and they're going to pay me more, I'm going to go for it.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to lie about that.
Keep moving up. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot of this, I think, in the InfoSec community that's like, I'm not in it for the money, I'm in it for this, and I'm in it for that. I think, who gives a shit what the reason why you're in it? As long as you're in it, as long as we've got like, people in the industry contributing, actually doing some fucking good, which I definitely like to think that I am. Yeah. That's definitely what angle I come at this from. So I wasn't the best at forensics by any stretch of the imagination. But I enjoyed it while I did it.
But you had a good time. Yeah. And I always kind of thought it was, hokey, like when vendors say, oh, we're fighting evil. But at the end of the day, I was like, actually, if you look at sort of this multi-billion-dollar industry that Eastern Europe is bringing in off of the sale of black market data, and just profiting off of the data that's stolen, that money is going to fund human trafficking, drug trafficking, like evil things in this world. And we are actually up against evil. We're dealing day in, day out with people that really don't care. It's about data that they can profit from, right? There's a reason that data is worth more than oil today, and the bad guys know it, and if they can make significantly more off of a ransomware infection, than selling drugs on the street corner, then they're
and that's where they're gonna go.
Exactly. So definitely. Oh my God, I didn't know that about you. That you were a waitress before. That's an amazing sort of coming up story. I mean, you're right. It's a cybersecurity has lifted people out of poverty and low income situations, and that's amazing. And if you have, I always tell people, you can teach someone, how to read the fields of an IP header or TCP header, but you can't teach them, passion. You can't teach them the interest to want to sit down and learn it, but you can teach them, the things that they need to learn to be able to do their job. But if they don't have the passion to learn it, if they don't have the interest in doing it, you can't teach that. So I mean, it's almost like that's got to be the first ingredient, because you can teach everything else.
Yeah, you really can. And I think when it's especially when it's technical, if a computer can learn it, a human brain can. We're so much more complex, and we teach computers. They learn from us. They are programmed by us. So when people are really scared of computing and really scared of learning about cybersecurity, I always try and come at the angle of just another human has programmed that to do something, and you can do exactly the same because you're also a human. And there's no such thing as a stupid question, because stupid people don't question anything.
Yeah.
And I think if you come into the industry with those kinds of attitudes, you can do anything. You can fly. And going back to what you were just saying about people doing good in the industry, I think anyone that's contributing to the security of your infrastructure and the ecosystem that we live in, they're doing good, whether that's in a corporate environment or an industrial control system environment, anything like that. You're doing good. Like penetration testers, they break things to make them better, to make them safer, so that they can then go out into the world. And I think we kind of forget that, because it just becomes the daily grind. And that's a shame, because I think if we played that up more, we probably wouldn't have such a deficit of people, because everyone wants to be a superhero, right?
Yeah, I agree. So if you could go back 5 years and talk to Eliza back then, what would you tell her?
Don't fucking do it.
You would tell her not to do it?
No, I wouldn't. I think
because... Stay a waitress, Eliza. Stay a waitress.
Well, I think because I was so like, oh, I can do this.
Yeah, this so very laissez-faire. Yeah.
I think I just did things, and then like the next thing would come along, and I'd be like, of course I can do this. Right. And then the next thing, and the next thing. And I think if I actually knew the scope of like, what you have to learn, the fact that it's you have to learn so much about so little in, do you know what I mean? You have to learn so in depth in so many areas, that I probably would have been scared off by it. So I probably would have just told myself to get your head down for today, forget tomorrow. Oh, and that's kind of the thing I live by today.
Yeah, I think what I would do is I'd probably go back to that alley and say, oh God, there's so much I would say. I think probably the biggest thing would be, don't take it so personally. So I have a tendency to really beat myself up for mistakes, and and there's so many trolls out there, so many people with something negative to say. I think I would tell myself not to take it so personally, not to take it so hard, and tomorrow's a new day, so I think that's what I would say.
I think that's good because, like, face it, we're all angels some days, and then we're all fucking cunts other days, right?
This is true. So, I love your vernacular. You totally have to. You have to be on every episode of Night TV. This is amazing. You are my new co-host.
You just zoom me in for like a still.
This is amazing.
And like the voice of me just going fucking cunts.
Awesome. Best freeze frame ever. So
sorry, you're gonna get demonetized. You can beep it out, can't you?
That's okay. I really don't care about that. Yeah, so okay, well, this has been amazing. Okay, I would love to close out with what your advice would be for the little Elizas running out there that are wanting to get into network forensics or just cybersecurity in general. What's your advice for them?
Little Eliza's, that's a really scary thought, isn't it? Can you imagine? Like,
it's amazing.
Oh, that's a great question. Okay, so this is going to sound really cheesy, but literally take it one step at a time. So,
okay.
Like the top of the stairs is a long, it can be a long way. It can look like a really big deal, but just concentrate on the step that you're on and then just concentrate on the next one. And what I mean by that is if you're reading something and you don't, and you're learning it for the first time, you're learning it for the first fucking time. Like, just learn it. Don't think you have to be an expert in it immediately. And I think that's where I went wrong quite early on with confidence and stuff, because I just thought, yeah, I'll be fine. And then I'd read something and go, oh shit, I don't get it. And I'd concentrate on the fact that I didn't get it rather than just fucking learning it. So that would be my advice.
Yeah, it's kind of like that whole, and I'm going to massacre the name, but Mudson, the 10-mile march. I don't know, do you hear the story of that?
No, but you can totally tell me it.
Okay, in 1911, a British explorer, Robert Falcon Scott.
That doesn't sound anything like Mudson.
You didn't learn about this in school?
No.
Our schooling is so much worse than UK. I assume you guys just have better schooling than us. Better education. So in 1911, there was this British explorer. This is the part where I get to like artificially sound smart. This British explorer.
You gotta ask some questions.
This is amazing. And a Norwegian explorer named Amundsen, and they both went to. They were both going to race to the South Pole, right? So it was something like Scott was going to just walk as far as they could, as far as his team could, every day until they couldn't march anymore. And Amundsen would just do like 20 miles a day. And you would think that Scott would get there first because, he did the most he could every day, whereas Amundsen would stop every 20 miles and rest. And it was actually Amundsen who got there first because Scott's team actually died in the process. It's this really censored, and I probably have it totally flipped. Like it was probably Amundsen that made it. Anyway, that died. Anyway, you can see how awesome my memory is. But I just know, like, I'm just thinking, like, this is, and I can't even remember why I brought this up, but it was like, oh yeah, you were talking about like, just take it one step at a time, and okay, I totally.
And you're like,
let's just forget that whole thing just happened.
Take a rest.
Because I spent like 20 minutes trying to remember their names. Anyway.
No, I love it. I've learned something new.
All right, Ms. Eliza, thank you for being on the show. This is seriously, I think it's been one of my favorite episodes. This is amazing.
It's my favorite episode because I'm on it.
It is. It's going to get the most views. So just watch. You're going to go viral.